Welcome to The World According to Bob. One of the things that bugs me the most right now is holding people to today's standards for stuff they did in their time. And what I mean by that is stuff like Robert E. Lee. I'll throw Robert E. Lee out there because it's a good example. Back when Robert E. Lee was offered the Army of the United States / America, he was a Virginian. And back then you were a Virginian before you were an American. You were a Marylander before you were an American. You were a North Carolinian before you were American. You were a Tennessean before you were an American. What your state did, that was how you represented yourself, was you represented yourself as being from your state, not as being an American. And that has changed. That's why when Robert E. Lee went with the South, he did it because Virginia went with the Confederacy. So by today's standards, Robert E. Lee was a traitor and committed treason. That is true. By today's standards and by history, he is. At the time, he was following the guidelines of society as a whole. He was a Virginian. Virginia went with the South, so he became the general of the Confederacy. Now, that's just one example. History states that's true. It is very true. It's also, back then, not unusual to get married at 13 years old. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it is what it is. It's reality. Back then, people married their cousins, and we frown upon that now, too. Hell, Jerry Lee Lewis married a 13-year-old who was his third cousin back in the 50s. That wouldn't dare happen this day and time, but people would get criticized for it for doing it back then. But it was the norm. What I'm getting at, I guess, is I don't want to be held accountable for things I did as a young adult or a kid, because I did some stupid crap. Hell, you can't even close the door on my skeletons if you look at them. That's why I can never run for public office. I don't have enough money to hire somebody to get me out of trouble. So, I choose not to run for public office or really do anything that they could dig up my past on because I have too many skeletons in my closet. And do me a favor, don't go looking for them. Anyway, what I want us to do as a society is give credit for people's growth. Like I've said in earlier videos, at one time I was a racist and now I've grown and I'm not that person anymore. I am a totally different person than most people knew me when I was a kid, would not recognize me now, and I even have family members who pretty much disown me because of my views now, which is disheartening, but it is what it is. We as a society have stopped giving people credit for their growth and where they are now as compared to where they were back in the day. Because again, I don't know of anyone who wants to be held accountable to stuff they did when they were a kid because times have changed and what they did back then is not acceptable now. It's just bad for things to get that way. And that's part of the problem with what's going on in the United States now, is the cancel culture is looking back at people's histories and coming up with things they did 15 to 20 years ago, emails and stuff that they said 15 to 20 years ago before they grew. Now, if they're still an asshole, that's a different story. If they still act like that, that's a different story, but they've proven that they've grown. Give some credit to them and give them a pass. Disclaimer, I'm a licensed mental health therapist in California. If you're searching for mental health help, please reach out to someone in your state. If you are within California, you can reach me at the email below. And if you're interested in coaching anywhere in the United States, you can reach out below also. These videos are for educational purposes only, and if you're thinking about suicide, please reach out and call 911.